operate, maintain, transfer, and provision of support services that the House took on 20th March 2015 for reasons of gross misrepresentation. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
It is proper to refer this matter to the Committee on Energy to consider the matter. Order to refer the matter order to the Committee on Energy. When the Committee on Energy, which comprises both sides of the House,
were raising constitutional issues relating to the admissibility of the motion pursuant to Order 93.3, and with your indulgence, I quote, Mr. Speaker, Order 93.3 states, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I would have wished to know on which leg and standing order the mover of the motion is making this application to this House. But where rescission is used in the standing orders is only in 93.3, and it states, it shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the House has come to a conclusion during a current session. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we also as a minority want to caution that this Parliament does not proceed so that tomorrow any member of Parliament can go and pick a contractual agreement and bring it here and say rescind.
On 2nd March 2017,
Chairman of the committee.
If I asked you what the one most important news item has been for you this week, I bet yours will be different from mine. Well, it makes sense because we all are different people. But if we put it all together, it will be a summation of the problems that confront us as a nation, or perhaps the achievement that we have chalked. It will also be split by individual differences. That, for me, is the story of Ghana, and we should learn to embrace our differences. Welcome to the beginning of a week away from the previous of African elections, budget review, etc. We'll be looking at a merry, because, well, it won't go away. So will the very familiar spectacle of minority walkouts in Parliament. On the streets, there were threats of a Yentia demonstration in response to a certain towing levy. Also, the Auditor General begins a show of muscle to some applause. But is this new? How far is the system willing to support him to achieve the goals set before him by law? Finally, is Ghana's history as we know it false, distorted? Is there an attempt to rewrite, correct, or is it simply a matter of extrapolation from different perspectives? Thing is, people have asked, is it even necessary? I'll say we'll hear the views of my panelists today. This is Editors Forum. Today, we'll try and evaluate Parliament this week with the budget review, a Mary and minority walkout, etc. The towing levy, of course, which also emanated from Parliament somehow. We'll look at the Auditor General, and we'll look at a very disturbing story for me. Multimedia journalists assaulted in Kumasi. Also, we'll touch base with elections in Kenya and the outcome of the elections in Rwanda. My panelists today are Kofi Encho. He's editor at Daily Heritage. You're welcome. And also, George Asekere is host of Behind the News at GBC. Is also here in the studio with me. You're welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Gifty Andopia, and this is Editors Forum. We'll be right back. So you saw how parliamentary business ended on Tuesday. I'm talking about how the fact that the minority members in Parliament had to walk out. Well, they were unhappy that Speaker Michael Quay would not allow for a debate on the motion filed by Member of Parliament Katie Hammond for rescission of the $510 million AmeriPower deal, but rather refer it to the Mines and Energy Committee for consideration. Why really is this move considered so wrong that it warranted a walkout? Let's speak with our parliamentary correspondent before we bring you our thoughts on it. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is on the telephone lines with me. Joseph. Hello, Gakpo. If you can hear me. Yes, in terms of parliamentary procedure, why will the Speaker's move be seen or be considered as so offensive that it warranted a walkout? Take us through a bit of parliamentary procedure.
It's become a little contentious for the majority side who are defending what the Speaker did. They insist that this is a novelty, and so it was at the discretion of the Speaker to decide what to do with the motion. Now, usually this is what happens. Motions are usually moved more often than not by chairmen of committees. So, for example, if a bill is coming to Parliament for approval, or any other agreement is coming to Parliament for approval, what would happen is that the minister in whose name it stands would appear before the House and lay the document. And then the document is then referred to maybe the appropriate committee to look at it. Classical example, the Special Prosecutor's Bill. When it came in as a bill, it was referred to the Committee on Constitution and Legal Affairs. Now, when the committee finished deliberating on that, the report of the committee was brought onto the floor, and then you move a motion for the House to adopt that report of the committee. So more often than not, when you are dealing with motions, it has to do with committees of report, reports of committees. Usually what we see being brought to the House, which usually comes as a bill and it eventually referred to a committee, usually has to do with bills and documents and that kind of thing. So it was expected that, as has been the practice, once what the Honourable Katie Hammond, the MP for Adansia Sokwa, moved on the floor of Parliament was a motion, and that it wasn't a bill, it wasn't a private member's bill, it was a motion in the real sense of the motion, and the House would have debated it going forward. In fact, on the few instances that we've seen MPs move motions on the floor, we've seen it being debated by members of Parliament generally. You'd recall that recently there was the half-hour motion that was moved on the floor by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, asking that the finance minister appears before Parliament to give details when it comes to the bond that was issued that has become a very controversial issue. He moved that particular motion, and then we saw it being debated by the House, and the decision was taken by the House there and then. But then MPs, particularly on the minority side, which is something that to a certain extent, going through the documents relating to Parliament, I tend to agree with. When it comes to a motion in particular, once it's moved, it has to be debated by members of Parliament generally for a firm decision to be taken on it. You don't really see a situation of a motion being moved and it's being referred to a committee.
To the committee.
bills being moved and it being referred to the committee. So there was the thinking that there appeared to be a problem with the speaker's referral the other day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Gakpo, for that explanation. I bet we may have to come back to you, perhaps, for some more on that. Joseph Gakpo is our parliamentary correspondent, taking us through a bit of parliamentary procedure, just so we set the background for our conversation. Let me come to you and start with you. It's been a while. Welcome. Welcome to both of you. George, let me start with you. In your opinion, did this warrant a walkout by the minority?
I think two things, depending on how you're looking at it. The minority is there to represent the interests of a certain section of the population. Likewise, the majority. But what is important is that there is leadership in the House. And it is the duty of leadership to ensure that arrangements are done in a way that every Ghanaian is represented. And so what has happened, I see it, one, as a failure on the part of leadership of Parliament to get the views of the ordinary people represented there, which for me is unfortunate. Now, as to whether it is good or not to walk out, it will be difficult to speak for now, because I'm not a parliamentarian. What I'm interested is that my views should be represented in the House, with or without the speaker being biased or not. But
it isn't the same thing they're trying to do, because when they feel that the minority, when they feel that the speaker is not allowing them to do what they think they should do, they think that the speaker is not allowing them to comment on a particular matter of such importance, then of course they're representing you by walking away in protest to say that we're not happy the way you're doing things in Parliament.
You can have your say, the Hansas will capture that, and history will judge you. But you see,
history, you want to wait for history to judge you?
Of course.
Well, if something is going wrong, you ought to
but
stand up and speak up.
Walking out doesn't solve the problem. You see, let's make things clear. We don't need to agree on certain things to do the right things. The House has a leader, and it is not the duty of the majority leader or the minority leader to dictate how the House should be run. It is the Speaker's duty to ensure that. I believe there are opportunities there. There are avenues to express one's misgivings if one feels that he or she has not been treated fairly. But per the arrangement, the Speaker has that power to direct the course of business in the House. See, I listened to the minority leader. He started a point and he ended, and I'm like, okay, what's the difference? He argues that, let me have my say, so you have your way, because you have the numbers. Even if I have my say, and you still want to do whatever you want, but virtue of the numbers you have, you will still be able to do that. So question, if that is the possibility, then why walk out and deny me representation?
You walk out because you feel that a walkout by the minority is a denial of representation of the people who put them there.
Yes.
But then, if you say, let me have my say, even though you have your way, it is still important to make a point, the necessity for the minority to be able to have their say. That's the democracy
having
that we
your
opted
say
for,
per the minority's own assessment doesn't guarantee having your input factored.
Okay, let me bring Kofi in onto this. Does it warrant a walkout?
Yeah, thank you. Let me say good evening to our viewers. It's been a while. I think that we should look at it from the democratic point of view. I think that whatever action the minority takes, which is within the confines of the law, I think we should allow it. Ghana is a beacon of democracy, not just in Africa, but in the world. Now, elsewhere, you know what people are doing when they disagree with you? They kill you. They fight you, they beat you up. So I think that, why? Democracy allows it. Workouts, is it new? Is it new in Parliament? It is normal. It's a normal process. It is normal process. I don't have a problem with that. You see, so let's look at the issues.
Once you make that point, let me bring my second question on that point, because it will make it will fit in easily.
That's fine.
Walkout is normal. We've seen that in our Parliament so many times. Yeah. But when it happens in such instances, who is suffering most here? Is it parliamentary business, or is it the people that they are okay, three things. Is it parliamentary business that's suffering because, you know, as a matter of convention, just like you're saying that this has become a convention, it has become normal for you? Is it the members of parliament because they don't get to benefit from, you know, whatever? Sometimes you walk out, the majority will still have their way. So is it the MP that's suffering, or is it the people that they are representing?
So thank you very much. But who determines that caveat? Who determines it? Who determines the effect of the action? Have we done any audience research to show that the walkout will affect, for instance, the minority leader when it comes to his parliament, his constituency? Have we done that? We have not done that. You see?
So in your opinion, who's losing?
The point is that I don't see anybody losing here.
Okay.
You see, we have a parliament with an almost absolute majority. And then we have a minority in parliament. Don't forget that each member of parliament is representing a constituency. You will not be happy that maybe the majority did what supposedly it did in parliament. So for instance, the person who voted for the minority leader will not be happy. But
that his voice is not being heard?
Exactly the point.
Okay.
The point I'm making is that democracy allows it. Okay? So we should allow them to do whatever. Once it's within the confines.
So every time if a group of people are not happy in parliament, they walk away, and then it brings the day to a halt.
Is it a parliamentary practice? Is it as loud?
It's allowed. It's allowed.
So then what's the problem?
But in Christian circles, they say you are doing
no, but I mean, this is not.
I'm just using that as an example. The fact that it is allowed doesn't necessarily mean that every now and then you should get up and do it.
This tool has been used by also the MPP. Don't forget.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, both ways. Either ways, the NPP and whatever minority.
So let's look
majority.
at the issues. Just briefly, just 1 minute. Minority, what are they saying? They're saying that
they're accusing the speaker of bias.
But the main point, they wanted to raise issues with, for instance, they wanted to make a case.
Argue. They wanted to debate the
Indebugi issue and all that, and they wanted to have that clarity in terms of, for instance, is it the standing orders? Is it that anybody can just wake up one day and then attack a law that has been passed by parliament? You like it's passed last year, 2016, and then 2017 a member of parliament raises it, and then we abrogate it. 2018 another member of parliament comes in and say, oh, there's a problem, because that time maybe they have majority, so they wanted to raise those issues. The point I'm making is that I am not for them. I am for democracy, and I think that we should allow it.
We should allow
it. See,
it.
elsewhere it's gory. It's gory. So I don't have any problem with the action of the minority. When we go into the details of the Ameri bill, that one we can talk about the issues in there. But the action itself, I don't have a problem.
What is the issue you have to raise when it comes to the Ameri deal itself? Now, it's been you raise a motion, as Gakpo has made us understand. I mean, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to parliamentary procedure, but as he said it was not right on the part of the speaker to refer a motion to a committee, a parliamentary committee.
See, the point is this. The argument of the minority is that they wanted to speak, and the majority leader said the motion has not been moved in the first place by K.T. Hammond. It has not been moved. So what is the point in going into the details?
But he moved it, didn't he?
Eventually. Then the speaker referred to the committee.
Okay.
I don't, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with the parliamentary proceedings. I think that it's good for democracy. We should allow it to flow. The details of the deal, that one will come to it. If somebody has stolen money, the person
no, get to it already. I mean, well, so get to it already.
No, for instance, you are saying that, and that is an allegation that has come up. The whole deal is $510 million dollars. Okay. There are reports and the allegations that the real value should be 220 million.
Well, I've also heard 150 million, that we could have had it for 150 million, according to a Norwegian newspaper.
Thank you.
That did a story.
So, at least from my figure, we are looking at about 290 difference. It means there's a thief somewhere. There's a thief somewhere who must be arrested.
Okay.
And then we deal with that person to serve as deterrent to others.
So when you walk out of Parliament, does it help the situation if there's a thief somewhere and we suspect that there is a thief somewhere?
My
walking
sister,
out of Parliament,
you think
how
that
will that help the situation?
BNI or the CID, National Security, all the investigative bodies we have, you think they will be interested in your walkout?
They are not interested. They will look at the substance.
They will look at the substance.
Okay, so let me bring George in here. George, your comment on what has been said so
You
far.
said quoting you quoted the Bible.
I didn't quote the Bible.
I'm a friend of pastors. So
I didn't quote the Bible. I was just referring to a phrase
yeah,
that's
that
very
all
common
things are good
in
and all
Christian
things are
circles.
expedient. Yes. It's the minority in Parliament has successfully made its point clearer on all these issues, and that for me is good. But the majority has not successfully made a side of the point clearer.
Okay.
So when you look at it, it appears yes, the minority is right, the speaker is being biased. And here Muntaka talk about the fact that look, the speaker thinks we are small boys. And if you're going to look at it from that way, of course they are looking at the leadership of the minority.
No, he was actually looking at, speaking of how much we know or how much they know about parliamentary procedure.
Good.
That's really their concern.
Yes.
The minority, if you listen to them, they are saying that this is a breach of parliamentary procedure and we should not allow that to happen.
This is the
But having said that, if you could move on to the Ameri deal itself, I don't know what your own understanding is. I mean, you've heard what he said. He's having 250 million,
290 million,
I've heard
probably
150.
stolen by an individual.
So there's the suspicion that there's a thief there.
When I hear the thief, no, I don't think
You don't
necessarily.
think
If I go to the mall, I can go and buy Guinness at 2 cities, 50 pesos within the same environment. There are stores within that I go and buy the same product, 10 cities. When you go to that place, you see people there.
But,
they are aware.
But you should look at the details. The devil is always in the details.
Yes.
If you get the details, then you know that you're paying for a cheaper price or a cheaper item, which will not give you the same value.
The point I'm making is that by buying something $510 million does not necessarily make it the best in terms of quality. And by buying something at a cheaper price, say 210, does not also make it the best deal. So let them come out with the alternatives and let the expert come out and tell us that these are the possibilities in terms of value for money for the Ghanaian. But I think if you are given the power of the state, you have that power to spend on behalf of the people. So it is possible they will go through all this. Yes, it was not done based on value for money, but you can't prosecute anybody because the person had the power to act at the time he or she was acting. I'm sure if you want to remember what happened, the case of Betty Modrusu and others, when they went to court, that was the argument. I am in charge. At the time I acted, did I have the capacity to act? Yes, I did.
But you have the responsibility to ensure that the Ghanaian people have value for money.
And at that time, I felt that per this deal, it is the best for the Ghanaian people.
It is not just about how you feel. It is not just about how you feel. It is about what the facts are, what the figures are. I mean, if you would go, it has to be within a certain range. You know, the moment it goes beyond that range, then it's stealing.
It is not. It cannot be stealing.
And
It is
actually,
possible.
It may be.
It may be. It may be. It may not be.
That you did not do due diligence, actually.
Due diligence.
Not necessarily
defined as
stealing, but that you have not done due diligence.
It's just like the mobile phones we buy. Sometimes you know that this the same quality, but you choose to go to some place to buy.
What are your expectations of how this issue will end, the Ameri issue? It keeps going back and forth. Over the week, we heard that the former power minister and his deputy were invited, at the CID's office. We know that they went there and took wrote down their statements. What are your expectations of how it's going to
I
end?
expect the truth to come out eventually. For now, you and I cannot tell whether there was some fishy deals or not. It is only after the investigation.
Right.
The three parties involved, Dr. Ayini, Mr. Jinapo, and then Dr. Donko, they've all not complained. They've all said they are cooperating. And so I heard Dr. Donko, for instance, say that, look, there was nothing to hide. We did everything clear, so nothing to fear.
Right.
So let's watch the way things will unfold. But I think that when it comes to Parliament, they should let us know that, yes, the thing is being done with a very clear mindset. So that
They should make it clearer.
Yeah, so it shouldn't look like maybe there's an attempt to do political prosecution on one side or political covering on the other side.
To what extent do you suspect political prosecution in this?
Interestingly, I normally don't suspect till I see. Seeing is believing.
All right, that passes you for a judge. Kofi, let me come to you, but let's wrap up on the Ameri, the walkout, because there are still issues in Parliament that needs to be dealt with. Well, actually, before you come in, let's play the Minority Chief Whip's sound. Muntaka Mubarak, obviously very furious after they walked out of Parliament earlier. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We keep talking about the gagging. People don't understand. Because, you see, it is not for nothing that the minority leader stands. It is because the minority have reasons to speak. And if you do everything to prevent them from speaking, you make the House very difficult to govern. For the first time, let's go and check Order 53. It is the majority leader who gets up with the indulgence of the Mr. Speaker and the House to vary the business of the day. You don't have the Speaker himself running the House as if it's a small church or his small home where he decides which business he calls. It's not done that way. The Standing Order 53 clearly stipulates which business should be done first, which one should be done second, and in that order. So if for any reason the leader of government business thinks that because of one priority or the other, they want to disorder it and do it in a different way, it is the leader in consultation with his colleagues on the majority side who agree, and then he will apply to the Speaker to get that done. But unfortunately, just look at what we are seeing. You see, we don't want it to look as if we are just complaining and complaining and complaining. But one thing we can assure Mr. Speaker is that we shall continue to fight until he understands that this is a house that every member must be given space. You were there when we were debating the Getmo 2. Are you really happy the way he was conducting things? No. Members get up. You participate in the debate. Speaker does not participate in the debate. He was participating in the debate. Such an important thing. He said he was going to allow only 2 people to speak. We decided that fine. You want 2 people to speak, let them have the space. Even when a member, Honorable Mama Yaga, was reminding him that this is the only platform that ordinary citizens of this country can express themselves without being held, he will not bite. You see, we are worried. We are worried. And look, we left because we thought that, one, he should have allowed our leader to exhaust the case that he was, because he was citing Supreme Court rulings. He wouldn't let that happen. Even the majority leader himself was saying that, look, you are just carrying the business without even consulting me. Ministers are there to answer questions. Members have their questions needed to be asked. You just order the business the way that you, the one sitting, suits you. Our standing orders do not allow that. And we are really very saddened. We are saying that the constant neglect by the Speaker to ignore and disrespect the minority. Look, with a greater respect, yes, he could be the aid of our parents. Also,
okay, Minority Chief Whip Alhaji Mubarak Muntaka speaking right after they walked out. So I was going to have you speak on.
Just wrap up
Sorry. Yes, to wrap up on that conversation in Parliament. Has the Speaker been fair, would you say? I don't know if you followed parliamentary proceedings so far.
I do.
Yeah, because they didn't just walk out. I mean, they complained a bit about a few issues that have happened. When the Electoral Commission chairperson was invited to Parliament, for instance, there was a little bit of a banter, not very pleasant banter between the majority and the minority leader. And of course, it was this triangle where there was the minority leader, there was a speaker, and then there was a majority leader, and there was that back and forth. Apart from that, when the budget review, the finance minister Minister was in Parliament for the budget review. There was also an issue. They said they wanted to debate it. They said, well, this is a statement. And so they were also not very happy about it. Exactly. And then there was the Ameri, which finally they walked out. I don't know if you have followed it so far, but would you say, in your opinion, that the Speaker himself has been speaking for himself? He says that he's been explaining, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's been explaining to, so to speak, to set aside the accusations of bias that's been brought against him by the minority. But if you could comment on that,
yes,
would you say he's been fair?
Yes, so I'll answer that. But at least if I can talk about the winding up of the Ameri one.
Okay, cool.
But let me just, I don't think that the Speaker is biased. You see, it's politics. It's somebody would say class politics. It is normal. It is normal. And in this case,
if you say it's normal, exactly what do you mean?
Democratic credential, democracy allows it. You see, let me tell you. And then, you see, Ghana is, in 1992, we went and we have, in the past, they used to call us entrenched democracy. No, growing, fledgling, they use all kinds of words. I believe that we are now entrenched.
Oh, okay.
You see, the thing is that, you see, allow democratic things to flourish. I don't have a problem.
Democratic
processes. You see, the Speaker is doing his work. He is following, and this Speaker is one of the best we have had in the country.
By whose estimation?
By my standard.
Okay.
Because, see, in terms of academic acumen, he is there.
But that's not the only way to measure
people. He has
people.
also been a member of Parliament. He knows parliamentary proceedings. Okay, so he's solid. So it's not about, I wouldn't attack him because he's, no, I don't think so. But I think that is the politics of it. The minority will have to play its card well. Why? Because if you look at the numbers, if you don't play your card well, you will become irrelevant in the politics of the country.
Because all their decisions will be taken
exactly
anyway.
the point. The current situation we face is very, very serious as a country, because we have a minority that's very weak in Parliament.
What do you say?
In terms of numbers.
In terms of numbers, okay.
And even the party itself is excuse my language, disorganized. You see, so if the media, we don't play our role as the fourth estate of the realm, as we are recognized by the Constitution, and the minority as it is, and of course the opposition parties, as weak as they are, so to speak, then we are going to have a very difficult situation in our country. That is why I don't have a problem. I allow I think that it's okay. Let them do whatever they want to do. I don't think the Speaker is being biased.
It's not being biased. George, do you agree? Is the minority members, are their calls unfounded?
I don't think, there's no smoke without fire. But fairness is difficult to measure. Do we have standard reference as a country or as a people? We need to have standard reference. Then we have 2, 3, or 4 speakers from previous regimes, and that will benchmark Professor Okwe's performance again or not. Until we do that, it will be unfair on us describing him or trying to assess him.
Well, maybe we don't have the benefit of being in Parliament and knowing how they have conducted affairs. All of them.
If we don't have that benefit, then we will have no business taking a position. We only have to watch for things to unfold.
At least for what we have for Professor Michael Quay and the period within which he's been Speaker, at least we can, have an assessment of that if we have followed.
You see, when you talk to the majority leader, for him, he will tell you that, look, some of the things they don't disagree are less than those they agree. Unfortunately, it's only the few they don't agree that we discuss.
Yes, but that is what makes it abnormal. Well,
yes.
when it's normal processes, well, that's what we're paying
them
to do.
So it will then be unfair to see just 3% of things happening, they disagree, and we assess the performance of the Speaker based on the 3% and say he's fair or he's not.
Okay.
We will not be fair ourselves to do that. But you see, I've listened to the Speaker and I've watched him a couple of times, I think he's a human being. There was a day he came out to explain that, yes, we have 1 hour for questioning. And so we'll give 5 year. And I thought
that was good.
That was too good. I thought he was going to say we'll give 5%. If I'm giving 5% to the majority, 5% to minority, the numbers will not be the same. But that will still be fair.
Okay.
But in this case, he has gone beyond that to make it 50-50.
So on a cursory look, you would want to say that you think he's been
Some of the
fair.
things I have seen so far, I think he is on course.
Okay.
And I think he's somebody who's written a lot about democracy. And so for that benefit of the doubt, I don't want to make definitive statements. Let's wait for some time. Then we'll be able to judge his performance against what he himself has thought and written about.
Okay. But then do the minority have a point?
They have a point. Why not? They are representing people. So they have a point. They are there. They are doing politics, like he said. Don't think they should be happy for the speaker to doing things that will inure to the best interest of the NPP as a party and the government. They should, if they do that, it will not inure to their benefit. So it's politics they are doing.
So you think that these things come up because they do not agree, or it comes up when the issues are more partisan than national in nature?
They agree. When you listen to them, and you hear this, you hear the majority leader, for instance, say, we discussed this before coming in. And you've heard the minority leader a couple of times say, look, we discussed this before coming in. So you get the impression that they've already sorted out certain things. But when they come on the floor, they want to make certain points, maybe for the cameras.
For the cameras.
Yes.
That's something very interesting that we'll look at under the budget review issue. Well, on Monday, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta was in Parliament to, of course, review the budget as required by law. We had things like government policies are yielding expected results, public debt still rising, the drops in revenue targets, economy is recovering. We also had things like, where are the policies that are being referred to? That's what the minority asking. They say there's lack of creativity and there's cooking up of figures. Now, I'm wondering what your own understanding of the budget review is before we look at how it went down in Parliament. Or perhaps we can start with how it went down in Parliament, which was a point that you were making about the fact that they discuss. Sometimes you actually see them arguing and laughing. And I'm wondering, someone says the minority, the parliamentarians are having fun at our expense. I saw a comment like that on Facebook.
Sometimes I see same. When the finance minister was speaking,
right,
watch the majority leader and the deputy. They were chatting with some other people on the other side. Then we see them.
The minority leader?
Yes, and the Honorable Ajua Safo, the two of them. And I was wondering, are these people really listening to the minister?
Right.
Anytime
because their positions are fixed. You know, the majority has a fixed position. When they come, they support it. Whether it's good or not, they support it. So they don't really have to listen. Don't you get that feeling?
This is social science. There are different ways of doing things. They feel this is our way of doing it. The minority thinks otherwise. They all make cogent points, supporting whatever position they have taken on any matter. And so it is in order. But if we go into details, for instance, when you hear comments like cooking figures, then it becomes problematic. Is it true figures are cooked? And if figures are cooked, what the finance minister has presented is what becomes the standard reference of the Republic of Ghana. So even if it is cooked, it becomes the official figure. It is not this current minority that is doing that. When the NPP was in minority, they did the same thing.
Exactly the point. So let me bring Kofi in. It's as if he's been quiet for some time. It's like a fixed match. Okay, you know that the minority will say no, the majority will say yes, and it happens all the time. Do you get the same sense that the minority and the majority and the parliamentarians, let's just say the parliamentarians, sometimes have fun at our expense?
There was something I observed about the finance minister, and I said, yes, this man is a deep thinker. You know what he did? After the presentation of the budget, the minority made their point, the majority also made their point. And in fact, some of the issues that were raised by the minority were very, very unpalatable.
Really?
In fact, they
give us an example.
I'm coming, Gifty,
Okay.
don't worry. they were meant to slight the integrity of the finance minister, okay? But overall, when everything was done and he was asked to give his final statement, usually, if you have somebody who is very intolerant, the response would clearly be to respond to what the minority said, because there were attacks from the minority, so to speak. But you know what he said? He said, oh,
he said it's been a rigorous debate.
I love the debates, and all the issues that have been raised will be brought on board.
So what?
It means somebody is listening.
Okay.
Okay. It means we have a finance minister who listens to the complaints.
What does that do?
It's good for us because you see, economy, the management of economy is not the reserve of an individual, but you have various think tanks, you have people in government who have the know-how, but unfortunately they are not the finance minister. You have the economic management team, you have a whole lot. And so if you are the type who says, let's implement this policy, and that is it.
So for you, here is a listening
for me,
finance minister.
I'm looking at the parliamentary proceedings and how.
So fair enough, but do you get the sense that they are having fun? I mean, they're arguing the budget review out. I mean, they're having a conversation. So let's just say they did not debate this. They said it's a statement. So they did not debate it.
Usually,
but they had a conversation.
But you know that usually.
And they were laughing. That's the point I want us to address. I mean, they were laughing among themselves. But they were still making arguments.
I agree. But you see, in parliament, they are not enemies. So they have classmates there. It's not. The point is that, especially the budget, when the finance minister reads, if it's like what finance minister is additional, they usually the first day is not for the debate. The first day is not for the debate. So a few comments and then you tag it
well,
negatively.
According to what Gakpo is saying, that it should have been debated, but they said this review was the presentation of a statement. So it was not like they're coming to do a review for them to have a debate on it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, but it does. But the point I'm making is that I think that we should not readily attack our institutions. You see, the processes are normal as we speak. We should allow the processes to flow. I don't see any biases. If I see, I will say it.
I see. George, what is your own understanding of the budget review as was presented in Parliament? I mean, with all of the things that I say, policies yielding results, public debt still rising, drop in revenue target, etc. As a news person, what's your own understanding of it? It gets very technical.
I'm a news person and a very good Roman Catholic, and today is Sunday, so sometimes I have to be fair to myself and my church.
Amen.
You see, figures are figures. The finance minister made a brilliant statement. He said, yes, the economy is on the right track. We are moving on. But we are conscious of the fact that our performance or our appraisal of these figures will be measured by how they reflect on your pocket.
Definitely.
That for me was very instrumental.
Okay.
When I take that and I take the figures, from December 7 to January 7 and the period immediately before and today, when I go to Goyle filling station to buy fuel, I spend more. I go to Total filling station to service my car, I spend more today than last year. When I go to the market to buy yam or kinky, I spend the difference is not too much. And in fact, it goes against my budget. When I look at my salary as a public sector worker, it remains static.
Okay.
So if these figures are coming down and the standard there doesn't reflect what we do, then it is problematic.
Okay.
And I've tried to ask so many economists, why, for instance, should we be praising ourselves that the Bank of Ghana has been able to reduce the policy rate from about 26 to 21%?
No, now it's about 11 or 12, I think.
No, the policy rate from the Bank of Ghana is 26 to 21, 21 point something. If they've done that, Treasury bill rate has dropped from between 16 and 18 to about 13. What does that tell me? When I go to ADB today and I'm citing state institutions to take a loan, they will charge me an interest over 30%. If you went there last year, when the policy rate was around 26%, you were going to pay the same 30+%. So for me, yes, these things are good. They are coming down. But to what extent do they affect me?
So the figures and everything are there. I mean, on the majority side, it might look enticing. But as far as your pocket is concerned, it's not something that resonates.
For now, no, yes.
For now, it doesn't resonate.
So let's wait for what the finance minister is saying. This is not the first time. We've had single-digit inflation in this country, but the question is, did that change whatever you bought on Makola Market?
Which is what everybody is looking at. I'll come to you, Kofi. I heard from somewhere that before now, the ministers of finance, maybe when I was much younger, when the ministers of finance went to parliament to present budgets, they go up until quoting how much, for example, Kenke should cost, or the cost of Kenke, and they go very basic. They go all the way down to explain very basic things. So I have deliberately shied away from dealing with all of the figures and everything that was presented in parliament by the finance minister, because most of the time, sometimes it does not make sense.
It doesn't.
Okay, so
and I quoted a book here when I said state protected thieves. We have to be conscious of that.
Okay.
The crutch for.
No. I mean, there is an understanding, but the point is that now brings me back to my second question, which I'm going to throw to you, Kofi, about the method of conveying such information, such financial information. Is it something that makes understanding easier for the entire populace, or is it something that a section of the people can understand, but not everybody? In fact, the journalists who are supposed to break it down and forward this message to the populace themselves half the time don't understand those figures. the method of presenting this information.
The figures are figures. When it comes to the economy, there are certain words that you can't do away with. For instance, the inflation, GDP. You can't run
GDP,
away.
inflation, revenue.
You can't run away from those things. You see, in this case, the finance minister went to parliament. We are looking at, for instance, the public debt. The general debt of the country. It is important. We need to know. I see there are people who are financially strong. They understand the terminologies.
Okay.
So, and these are business moguls, don't forget. And so they will looking out for their terminologies.
So this is good for them.
Yes, to understand.
For those of us who are not
No, but eventually that is why we are supposed to be journalists. That's why we are supposed to break it down.
Okay.
For the ordinary.
How do you break down an information that you yourself don't understand?
No, but there are journalists who are astute when it comes to some of these things.
Economy.
We have financial journalists who are solid.
Okay.
They will break it down for you to understand what, for instance, inflation is.
In your assessment of the media and what we did with the budget review,
I think it's solid. It's solid because you see, the business world looks up to a certain session, and they are how do I put it?
They control
the system.
production.
Exactly the point. So they need to understand that. Okay, in December 2016, the internal debt of this country was 122.6 billion. In June this year, 2017, it's 138.5 billion.
So this is how much we owe as a country.
And then you do the comparison, we are looking at about 50.9% increase. So they know. You get it.
So the business people know.
Then
but the people who are selling at Makala, how do they understand
we are the journalists, so we explain to our readers.
To them.
Then you come to the domestic debt, for instance. Then what is the domestic debt? It's moving. It's moving from, we are looking at like 53.4% to 63.9%. There's a difference in there about 10.5%. You see. Then we have the external debt, which is usually quoted in dollars. We are looking at about 16 point something percent to 17.1. So you see, they know the figures. So when they know that, okay, this is how much you are borrowing, and then they can then easily project that, well, by the end of the year, if we are not careful, then our debt, usually not the domestic, not the external, will be around about 140 billion or 145 billion. They do all these things, and so they plan their businesses based on some of these figures. So it is normal. It is up to us to understand some of these figures and then explain to our readers. For instance.
But you said that it's solid as far as you're concerned. The way journalists were able to break this.
Yes, because I monitored the business, especially the business
newspapers.
We have, we have the general ones.
So may I put it to you? May I put it to you that per your own assessment, it tells what my understanding of what you're saying is that those who need to understand, the business people, a certain elitist kind of people, a elitist group of people have understood. I mean, they are the targets for this kind of presentation.
Not necessarily, because you see, sometimes, sometimes, I mean, in the past we've had situations where.
You said you looked at the financial, especially the business, the business newspapers.
But the finance minister cannot. Well,
no, I'm only questioning whether this is the. I mean, or we should just accept it that not everybody will understand GDP and revenue and everything, and just leave it at that.
We are the fourth estate of the realm.
Yes, that's a very nice title.
Yes, we are supposed to be knowledgeable.
But I can bet you that if you were to do a vox pop right now and to find out even. Let me leave that out.
Then we are failing.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. We necessarily failed. My concern is that shouldn't there also be a way where people, I mean, some of these things can be broken up. First of all, it's a very lengthy document that is presented in Parliament. Well, should we do anything with it? Really? Okay, maybe I should bring. Is that your point?
It's not. See,
okay,
I'm coming. Okay. But I see the budget itself. We have to look at it. Okay, we have positives and we have negatives. I was going to look at the GDP growth, for instance.
Okay.
But it appears that
okay. No. Okay. Fair enough.
It will not resonate.
No. No. It will. I understand. I mean, there are ways that we can understand it. I'm just raising concerns about the method. Is that the only way we can do it as a country? Is that the best we can do for the understanding of our populace? But anyway,
it is our job.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Let
me bring George in, and then we can get to the details of the GDP.
Exactly.
I see that you have a lot of information on that. George, is this the best way we can handle this? Should we just assume that we can't do away with figures with words like the GDP and the public debt and etc.
Inflation.
Or maybe with the tree or the account speaking platforms, perhaps they will be able to break it down and make it easier for the other group of people to understand. But is this the best we can do? Should we just accept that, look, this is economics, whether you like it or not, this is it. There's nothing we can do about it. And when it comes to Parliament and the presentation of budgets, this is the only way we can do it. Take it or leave it.
Well, I think, sadly, the journalists are increasingly becoming like politicians. And so when you listen to journalists analyze certain things, we are not too different. I said too different from the politicians. We ought to know, yes, these are the figures, but what do they mean for the ordinary person listening to you? So that if you intend going to take a facility to establish a business, by listening to the news report, you will think twice whether you should hold on for a moment or you should go ahead. Figures are figures, yes, but figures do not necessarily represent the truth on the ground. South Korea, the economy is growing for about 7%. Singapore, the same. When you go there, or when you even read and read journals, articles from those countries, you get the impression that there's that corresponding level of job creation. Take even Kagami's Rwanda. When they say economy is growing, there's that evidence of employment rate increasing. Okay, it is different from when you go to say Zimbabwe, when the opposite is the order. So when we come to Ghana, we should be able to get to that level where journalists will be able to tell the people that yes, the finance minister said we are yielding results. What are the results that we expect as a people in the economy? How many people are being employed as a result of that results we are yielding? How many companies that are being established? How many individuals are able to establish their businesses?
But if this information is not available from the ministries, etc., from government to the journalists, I mean, how
the information is available. When you're a journalist, you can get every information you want. The information is available. There's actually nothing left to be added.
Okay.
So the politicians will capitalize on that and make political points. But are we politicians? To the extent that we can go out there and join the NDCs, the NPPs, and the CPPs and do politics and make an impact, but we've chosen to do journalism, I think we should stay there and try as much as we can to explain the figures to the best of our understanding based on what experts will tell us to the ordinary people to understand.
In your assessment, did the journalists do justice to when it comes to, or in terms of explaining this very bulky information?
It is not actually bulky.
Yes.
You see, the explanation is bulky.
It was about 58 pages.
Yes, but if you read and you understand the economics of the country, it's just something small.
In your
but you see,
estimation?
Yes, journalists, I don't think so. We simply reproduced what the finance minister said. And sadly, because we now have a lot of radio stations, they will come and tell you, write 2-3 sentences. In fact, 2 sentences when it comes to economics, and they will let the minister speak. After the minister has finished, majority, minority, then they move on to another story. I don't think we have done ourselves good as a country, and I think maybe journalists should begin to look at certain things. We have put them there to serve our interests. If we are part of the governance system as Fourth Estate, what is our position? But
Kofi disagrees. He thinks that the newspapers, for example, the business newspapers explained it. They broke it down for the business community to understand.
Remember, when it comes to reading, it's different thing. You are publishing something, and your image is at stake. Your byline is there. So you need to put out the figures there. But I haven't read any newspaper, and I've tried a couple of them, not all, the business papers. I haven't seen any that has come out to tell us that as a result of the GDP being fixed A, as compared to B, this has been the impact. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any. And I haven't heard any radio or television station get to that level. Nobody has said because of the policy rate, banks practically have reduced their interest rate. I haven't seen any. They only come to tell you that treasury bill rate is going down. And what does that mean? We are left.
Well, I'm wondering why you're laughing, Kofi, but that's the point really that I was making. Like, and I'm thinking that, should you blame the journalists? I mean, there's so many things that's competing for our attention. So at the end of the day, you hear the speech, you say, okay, the finance minister, and then you play the speech, you do a bit of analysis. You
copy and paste.
Yes, no, not necessarily. You do a bit of analysis. Maybe you talk to the majority, you talk to the minority. The minority will make their points. Majority will refute it, and then and off we go. What ought to be done, if I should ask you, maybe I should ask you, Kofi, what ought to be done for the message and the way we send it across, or the way the Minister of Finance sends it across to Parliament and ultimately to the people of Ghana, to make it break it down further?
I think that
so they understand.
I think that we are trying.
as a country?
No, because this is clearly
because if you
about
say
the
we,
media.
it's
No,
something
it's
like
clearly
we the NPP are
no, no.
or we the majority are trying. Okay.
No,
okay. So let's clarify the we.
Oh, that's not fair.
Sorry, but that's the when you
No,
say
but
we.
I'm saying that we are trying in terms of like the media. You see, we are trying because you see the three stations also try to break some of these things down.
Okay.
They really do.
Okay.
So you'll be shocked that you go to Makola market and somebody will understand what inflation means, what the gross domestic product means. You will be shocked. So it's not that bad.
I think if we should do a box, because Makola is the hub. It's the hub of business. When you go, the people are doing business, and it is feeding our economy. But my point is that if you should ask them, you should do a box there right now. Tell them the finance minister was in parliament today. He said that the GDP has been this, and they'll tell you.
It's not that bad.
Okay.
It's not that bad because they really do interpret.
All right.
Because I don't know if I should say this here, but I wake up very early in the morning to monitor the media, and I'm telling you, they try. Especially, but you see, it's competition. Competition pushes them to do that.
Well, if I may add,
so
please add.
You see, if you are a student of public administration, you normally come across terms like input, output, outcome. We may be doing good at the input, output, but what is the outcome? You see, this is the amount you put in there. This is the result you achieved.
Right.
But was that the intended result? Who measures that? That is where we are failing. Okay. So I'm not by that saying that we have failed as a general. Yes, the Makwala person who may understand the inflation, the GDP as explained by the journalist, might understand it as it is, but not its impact when it comes to the reflection on your pocket.
I get it. But
that's the point I'm trying to make.
I get it, but you see, just maybe to wrap up.
Okay, to wrap up, I think you wanted to go into the GDP,
yes,
the figures,
yeah, but because of course, I mean, that's the general.
Please,
the finance minister went to parliament,
right,
and you see some of the high points, of course, was the GDP.
Okay. And
we had the growth of 6.3, but there were even issues with that. If you look at the debt, it's not nice. The way we are growing, like I said,
debt is never nice, even if it's small.
Yes, exactly. So we are likely to get over the 140 billion by the end of the year. Right. We don't like that, okay? Because this is just the first year.
Okay.
If we are supposed to go into the next 4 years, the next 8 years, that is not too palatable. But of course, there are positives. The GDP growth, for instance, unchanged, 6.3%. That is good. But then again, there's a problem there. Because if you look at the non-oil sector, we're looking at about just 3.9% growth. And then the oil sector itself, yes, did well. That is 58.9.
If you were to explain this, hold on, please. If you were to explain this, what you have just said, fantastic, I get it. If you were to explain it to someone who has not had the benefits of the kind of education that you have had, how would you break it down?
I have not had any education.
I mean, how you understand it, as it were, and the way you put it, you understand it.
No, see,
that's which is why you can say that it is not good. The GDP,
it's the growth of the economy.
Okay, so
if for instance, we remained unchanged, okay, that's 6.3%.
Okay.
If we were to be like below 6.3, then we say that we're not growing. So economy, no, economy. Of course, things will be hard. You see, and so if things are not working well, then it's like the growth rate will be like 1.2, sometimes even negative. If you go to, excuse my language, if you go to Zimbabwe, sometimes they have,
I know,
you know what it means. And you go into the negatives. It means you buy something 2 cedis, 2 p.m. By 2:30, it's changed. It's changed, you know, that kind of thing. So that is the whole thing. So let's not be hard on ourselves. Let's take it easy.
Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, but if the economy is growing, should we be rejoicing or not? Question, yes and no. If the oil sector is growing, it is good. Ghana, our oil sector is growing. But you know who controls the oil sector.
Yeah, exactly. So,
so we know that there are foreign multinationals who are benefiting as a result.
So
of
at the
that
end of the day, the oil sector is growing,
but it is not affecting you in Ghana.
Basically, we're supposed to be making money.
Yes.
But that money is being repatriated.
Last year, service sector was growing. And government was saying service sector has grown, but you knew the service sector. Who controls it? The telecos. When they make the money, they repatriate it there. So we are only deceiving ourselves that it's growing this, and let's praise government for this.
Well, perhaps that will also help you to attract certain grants or certain investor confidence.
But beyond that, that is good. Okay, I'm okay. Beyond that, tell us that this is the progress we are making. We are not feeling the impact because the share owners are outside. They are not Ghanaians. So the money actually goes there. But we hope that with time,
we will be able to put in this and that and that
these
policy.
are the policies we are putting in place.
That will make sure that we
the finance minister has said, look, we are going to build one district, one factory. For now, we may not be feeling the impact because the profit goes out. But with time, if we all contribute by supporting the policies of the government, maybe 3, 5, 10 years' time, we will get there.
Right.
That will be convincing.
And it will perhaps be more convincing if you're able to set out a clear path or what your intentions are about working it out, so that we the people of Ghana will also, the figures that you mentioned and everything will resonate. Maybe we don't understand economics. Maybe we don't understand economics, and I don't pride myself in the understanding of economics, as it were. So maybe we don't understand it, but this is what we think, really. Please, your final word on that.
Yeah, just 20 seconds.
The economic man.
When I am not, please. I am not. You see, when I was called to be part of this program, what I did was that I went out there to ask the same question that Sia was about. That okay, so how do you see the 2017 budget review? How do you see it? And of course, I got the response.
People said they're not feeling it in their pockets.
So it's basically about whichever policy is affecting them and that kind of thing. So they said, okay, I was buying Lily rice.
Hey, that's another. I'll bring you an invoice.
Yes, 5
it's her favorite. Right?
Oh, really? Me? No.
Like, 220, now it is 280, that kind of thing. So then eventually it goes down to the people that, well, the figures are this, but the people are saying we are not feeling it. See, so it's all up to government to look at some of these concerns, and then they push it out. But as for the figures, please, let them pass.
Well, pass on the figures to us, but I think that we'll appreciate something that, perhaps we all will understand. Everybody will understand. And, well, maybe the media will have to do a bit more when it comes to explaining these things and pushing it, forward to the people that we serve.